Hey guys, I'm Ben and I'm a rent service accommodation expert in Wakefield, and we're currently sitting on 10 rent to service accommodation deals that are across Wakefield and nearby Leeds. Cash flow wise, that looks like about 10 grand per calendar month, which is really tasty. On today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about the day-to-day runnings of a service accommodation business and what it entails. We're currently at one of my deals right now in Wakefield. We managed to get in between the cleaners and the next guest checking in, so we've got to get things moving and get this video recorded before our guests arrive. So number one, you really need to manage your cleaners. Now, cleaners are a funny onion, but they are so important to your rent-to-rent business, your rent service accommodation business, because they are in your properties more than you. They're the guys that are on the ground, they're the ones that are seeing everything, through their own eyes, and they're the ones that are going to be feeding back to you regarding any issues, and they are also going to be keeping your place clean, so we really do rely on them a lot. So one of the ways that we manage cleaners in our business is we try and do quality checks. Now, when you've got one or two deals, that's relatively easy. You can nip up once a week, after work or something, between guests. Just make sure everything's being cleaned properly and that the property is in a great standard for your next guests. When you get to 10 deals like us, that can be quite difficult. It can become a full-time job in itself. And eventually we do actually plan on employing somebody as part of our team to do the quality checks for us. So yeah, quality checks, make sure you keep an eye on your cleaners, even ask them to send photos after every clean. Make sure you give them a cleaning checklist, make sure you hold their hands in the beginning and let them know what your expectations are. And if you do this, they'll work hard for you and they will keep your property in a fantastic condition for your guests. So number two, inventory checks. So this is something that you can actually ask your cleaners to do, but sometimes it does pay to keep an eye on it yourself because the cleaners are human and they can miss things. So you want to keep an eye on your consumables, things like tea, coffee, anything you offer guests upon arrival. Things like toiletries as well, make sure they don't run out. You've got toilet roll, kitchen roll, all these things. The last thing you want is a guest turning up to the property and you've got no bog roll. That would be an absolute nightmare. And other things as well is things like your plates, your cups, your crockery, cutlery, all this kind of thing. If a guest breaks a glass and they don't report it to you, it can be missing and you don't even know about it. And if you've got a guest turns up and there's 6 of them and there's only enough plates and cups for 5 of them, it's going to land you in a bit of hot water. You're going to have to nip out on a Friday night at 8 o'clock at night up to B&M to buy a new packet of plates when you could be at home sitting down having a beer. So yeah, just keep on top of it and it'll alleviate any problems going forward. So number 3 is maintenance. Now this is pretty self-explanatory. You don't want too many maintenance problems building up at your property. Big maintenance, things like plumbing leaks and things like that, the boiler, the actual structure of the building, that's all covered by the landlord, but obviously it's going to be your team or you that picks up on these issues. And then you've got also minor maintenance, which as you scale can become harder and harder to manage because things like a loose door handle or a light switch or something like that that's a bit faulty, it can get lost in your day-to-day busy lives when you've got 10 deals plus. Your life's very busy, you're sourcing other deals, you're doing all this other stuff, you forget about that door handle at that unit that's hanging off, and then a guest reports it or puts it in a review or whatever, and it can become a right pain in the butt. So yeah, keep on top of your maintenance, have a great team on standby. Try and build a network of maintenance people, handymen, so that you can reach out to them in case of incidents like this when you spot a maintenance issue. And if one of them can't do it, the other one can go and just get it sorted, nip it in the bud early. That's my advice with maintenance. Number 4, now this is a real sticking point, and it can be a real issue if you don't get on top of it, and that is your neighbours. So as we know, like at this property, we've got neighbours there and we've got neighbours over the road. Neighbours are everywhere, and many of our SA units, in fact most of them, all of them are in, they're in residential areas. This is where people are living, this is where the families are being brought up, people live here. And sometimes they can be put off by the thought of having a short-term rental next door because they hear all the horror stories in the news about, parties and all this kind of stuff. and they believe it, unfortunately. So a big piece of advice I can give you is to build a solid, good relationship with your neighbours. Now, the best way to do this is when you get a new deal, you know, when you're setting it up, you might gain some interest from the neighbours if they see you, you know, moving furniture in and stuff. I've had neighbours pop round for a cup of tea and stuff, you know, thinking that we're a family moving in. Or, you know, you could go around and see them and just introduce yourselves, maybe pass your contact details to them. You know, say if there's any issues, if anything's bothering you, just reach out to me. You know, it can be a pain because you can have neighbours contacting you a lot. I know some neighbours at some of our deals, they contacting me all the time. But, you know, I'd rather them be reaching out to me and moaning at me than complaining to Airbnb or the council or trying to get our listing shut down or whatever, you know. So, yeah, just build a relationship with the neighbours, just be really friendly, be really nice, and be professional, just like you are with the landlords and the guests. And, you know, things will be a lot easier if you nip this one in the bud early. As soon as you get a deal, get the neighbours on board. And last but not least, you guessed it. Did you guess it? It's the problem guest. Now, let's be honest, guys. Let's be honest. You're going to get them. You are going to get problem guests. Now, there are ways in which you can reduce the amount of problem guests that you get. We'll do another video about that another time. But essentially, there are going to be times, especially as you scale and you get more deals, that you are going to get problem guests. Now, problem guests come in many different forms. You know, you can have partying guests, you can just have overly fussy, overly picky guests. You can have guests that take part in illegal and illicit activities. You know, and it's one of the hurdles we have to jump, I'm afraid. And all we can really do is, with these types of guests, is just handle it as professionally as we can. You know, we've got this professional image. We are professionals. We are in the hospitality industry. When it comes to guests that are overly picky and complaining about silly things, just be a good host. If it comes to party guests, people, you know, if you look on the Ring doorbell and you've got 100 youngsters in there, you know, look after your own welfare, guys. Don't go down there. You don't know what's going off down there. You know, it could be anything. Just, you know, think of yourselves first. You know, that, as I said, there are ways that we can get around that. There's ways that we get around it in our business. And, you know, there's ways that you can set up your Airbnb booking.com listings, which I can show you in another video. But, you know, just be aware that it's going to happen. And when it happens, don't panic. Be nice and calm. Be the consummate professional that I know you are. And deal with the situation the best way you see fit without putting yourself in harm's way. So just to summarise then, you've got to manage your cleaners and make sure you're doing quality checks. You've got your inventory checks to do, make sure that your consumables and things are being kept up to. You've got your maintenance to keep on top of, big and small. You've got any issues with neighbours that need ironing out, build a good relationship with them. And then you've got your problem guests that you just need to deal with as professionally as you can. So these are 5 major points that I come across in my day-to-day running of my service accommodation business. If you need anything, guys, if you need any more help and advice, just hit me up and I'm more than happy to help, and I'll see you in the next video.